alone humans. So we don't know what health time bomb could await us further down the line.
Okay, well, probably based on that, Brian Atkin from the Newcastle-based charity Changing Lives, he thinks that making legal highs illegal is the best way to send out the message that they're definitely not harmless. Have a listen.
It's certainly not going to make it worse, because too many people hear the term legal high and think that it must be all right to take it because I'm not going to get into trouble. Well, actually, it's not all right to take it, and making the NPS illegal is the best way to send out that signal to all these people who may have been tempted to try it in the first place. There is an underground trade going on already. We have a client who told us the other day that it used to be £12 for a pack of NPS. He's now getting it at mate's rate off a friend who deals drugs in a housing estate, and it's £29 a packet now.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, Fiona?
Several things, yes. I mean, first of all, there definitely is an underground trade developing, and that will only get worse with the current legislation that comes into force at midnight. The concerns around that, as your gentleman mentioned, relate to the fact that you'll have unlabelled products. Quite often they'll sell them at mates' rates, they'll have credit, they do special promotional offers. I heard of one MPS retailer in the Northwest who was providing free Rizla cigarette papers along with the products that he was selling. And also, by selling them on credit, they're allowing people to buy pocket money size products and then pay for them when they get their pocket money the next week or the next month. So in all sorts of ways, I think by pushing it underground, we're going to have more problems than we have at the moment, really.
At the same time, doesn't a line need to be drawn? You know, you've talked about the risks of this drug and the concerns about you don't know what's going to happen further down the line. It's not even like cannabis and ecstasy and cocaine where, you know, we have evidence over years to analyse.
Absolutely, and we can see that the Misuse of Drugs Act is rather a blunt instrument to be sending a message about the harm from drugs. It's much more important that we focus on the health issues than the criminalisation issues. A lot of money, more money could be spent on the health issues, and so I would want that to be the focus, really. We know from the Misuse of Drugs Act and from the levels of prevalence of cannabis and ecstasy that by making the drugs illegal doesn't necessarily deter some users. This law will deter some people who were attracted to the legal status, but far more people don't mind about the legal status. You have to remember a lot of people who use these legal highs, in inverted commas, are already using illegal drugs like cannabis. So the idea that you can send a message through legislation to young people in particular hasn't really proved to be successful in the past. I think we need to send a message through health education channels rather than through enforcement.
Only yesterday we were reporting on BBC Newcastle about 8-year-olds being found with cannabis. What do you think is going on when you've got such young children and so many people wanting to experiment in this way?
Well, we have an illegal market with unscrupulous dealers who have no respect for the age of their customers. I mean, I think that's the first issue. With something like alcohol,
they need to have customers to operate. So what is causing, say, an 8-year-old to want to dabble?
I agree. I mean, we have high demand in the UK traditionally for legal and illegal drugs. We have some of the highest levels of use in the world. Traditionally, we've been a weekend binging culture that people generally work hard in the week and then like to have quite a wild weekend, and that's been the case since Victorian times and beyond, really. So we've got a very long tradition of this sort of work hard in the week, sobriety, blowout at the weekend. But I think there are other concerns as well which relate to availability and price. At the moment, illegal drugs are very cheap, very easily available, and relatively high purity. You can see that with ecstasy tablets at the moment, that we have a whole spate of people dying because they're so easily available and so strong. What I suggest from that is trying to ban them hasn't worked. Clearly it hasn't worked because they're so cheap and easily available, even to 8-year-olds. So I would suggest that we need to go back to the drawing board, as is happening in the United States, in Uruguay, in Spain, in Portugal, right around the world, really, where they're looking at focusing on health rather than on criminal justice enforcement issues.
Thank you, Fiona. Fiona Measham there, Professor of Criminology at Durham University. We've entered into this drugs debate many times before. This is a little bit different because you're talking about legal highs until midnight at least. But what is it about, so many young children wanting to try it in particular? Yes, there's the availability and all the rest of that, but I mean, would you have considered talking to your kids at the age of 7 about drugs?
Well, I just think it's what's in, what is being talked about that is the big worry. So when I was at school, hallucinating. That's gone now.
From what age?
well, that was sort of when I was at secondary school, it was a big concern. But, you know, isn't it interesting that they're making this at midnight illegal, anything with a psychoactive effect, except alcohol, nicotine and caffeine? I wonder what your major worries are for young people now.
Well, there'll be a lot of people saying that's because people who make these laws like to smoke or like to drink, so they're not going to make those illegal.
Legal highs, I don't hear people talking about this. I'm not hearing it apart from in the news and in stories like this. Should we be talking about it more? 0191 232 6565. You talk about it now. Tell us what your concerns are for young people now. 0191 232 6565.
Wednesday's top stories: legal highs will become illegal from midnight tonight. A leading economic research group has warned that Britain could face 2 more years of public spending cuts if it left the EU, and a middle school in Northumberland that was facing closure has been saved, but it isn't straightforward.
We are discussing competitive eating.
Mid mornings with Bella Foster.
Kate Ovens, just over 5 foot tall, she has a size 10 wardrobe, and yet she has this enormous, colossal appetite.
I used to watch like that Man vs Food Fan one in Newcastle, the Gutbuster Challenge. It was a 24-ounce cheeseburger, got a portion of potato wedges and a large milkshake, and you had to finish it in 20 minutes. I do these challenges like maybe once a month, and I eat incredibly healthily like the rest of the time.
And what's the best food for a food challenge? Is that the easiest pizza?
The easiest, it's just my favourite.
Share your story with me, Anna Foster, weekdays from 10.
BBC Newcastle, radio for the North East.
0191 232 6565 with your points of view on any of our stories this morning. We're cold to come in this morning, and it was trying to rain, and I wasn't equipped. I was being buffeted about on my bike. It was quite windy, and there could be downpours when I was going home. A few heavy downpours on the way, and a lot colder. 10 Celsius, Jill.
Thanks very much. Yeah, busy morning, I'm afraid, as you're driving around the North East. Main routes looking slow. If you're on the coast road, just towards Benton Park Road, you've got a queue for about 3 or 4 minutes just to travel half a mile. You pick up and then slow down again towards the central motorway. 11 minutes will take you on the A191. Whitney Road's okay, and then as you sort of veer off towards Front Street and slow down towards Benton Road. A189 Salters Lane heading south to South Gosford. Again, you've got a queue through the works, nearly 6 minutes. Back at the queue on the central motorway, you've got about a 10-minute wait till today. Pretty much like yesterday, very slow heading down towards the Tyne. Back at the queue, Gateshead flyover, 25 minutes will take you 3/4 of a mile, and the A184, 26 minutes will take you along that stretch. So again, I'm not sure. There doesn't seem to be an accident, but the Tyne Bridge again this morning looking very, very heavy. So if you are stuck on that stretch, let me know what you can see, please. A1 is slow and it's steady from Washington Services northbound, and then pockets of slow-moving traffic will take you all the way up to Brunswick Village, just past Hazelrig, and around Bladen, heading to Bladen rather. Back of that queue, you've got about a 5-minute delay. Into Durham, you've got 10 minutes to take along the A690. That's all the way down to Lees's Bowl. You'll slow down from Hartside on the A691 to Akeley Heads, and then in turn to Neville's Cross. So again, that looks congested today. And public transport, you've got a couple of things going on. A shortage of available trains on the Tyne Metro between Pilo